10 days out from the first Democratic primary debate, and now we know the lineup, night one and night two. We're going to see these candidates on night one, and then the mix for night number two. One of the candidates in that second night is Andrew Yang. He's going to be on stage with Joe Biden and others, and he's here joining me right now. Andrew, you've had a lot of interesting momentum behind your campaign, certainly a lot of social media attention behind your campaign. What's your strategy to stand out on the debate stage? Because you made a thing about wanting to be next to Joe Biden.
Yeah, and so we're still at the point where most Americans are getting to know me and the campaign. So the goal is really just to introduce myself, my vision for the country, and let people know that the reason why Trump is our president is that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and that automation is now going to spread to retail, transportation, and other parts of the economy.
Why on social media have you all been saying you want to literally be next to Biden?
Well, because his name recognition is sky high and mine is the opposite of sky high. So if you have me next to Joe Biden, then it's going to hopefully change that dynamic and make it so that many Americans are Googling the Asian man next to Joe Biden.
And try to find out?
Yeah, it'd be like, who's that guy? Because I'm sure I would have the same reaction. And most Americans are just tuning in to the 2020 election. Most people have not heard of the majority of candidates.
What else are you trying to do to gain more exposure? You know, you have a book out called The War on Normal People. I think it's the kind of title that captures people's attention, makes you wonder what's in it. What else have you been trying to do using non-traditional media outlets to gain attention?
Well, as you know, when I first announced, most cable networks weren't that excited to have me on immediately, so I did a series of podcast
We're not
interviews.
that excited. We're not that excited?
We're not that excited because, you know, and I understand I didn't have a national reputation. I wasn't a senator or governor. So I did a series of podcast interviews that have now pushed me to a point where I'm at 3% in South Carolina and other states, one of the top 8 candidates by just about any objective measurement, closing in on 130,000 donors. And so now the news networks are very excited to have me on, but it was certainly not that way in the beginning.
But you think the podcasts did help to catapult you a little bit?
Yeah, and this is something that many, and for the subject matter of the show, but the top podcast audiences now are significantly larger than cable news viewership. And so certainly the Joe Rogan podcast has been seen on YouTube 3 million times alone, just on YouTube, and was seen millions of more times in audio format and others. And so podcasts truly are this new form of getting your message out to the public that have been instrumental for my campaign.
Yeah, it is the podcasting primary, as we're saying on screen. What about this MSNBC graphic kerfluffle a few days ago? I noticed some of your fans were tweeting at MSNBC saying, why is Andrew Yang not showing up on this graphic of all the other candidates? What happened here?
Yeah, and it was confusing to me because I'd been on MSNBC a number of times, and obviously NBC is hosting the debate that I'd qualified for, and I'd qualified not just yesterday, I'd qualified, qualified a while ago. So my supporters were rightfully confused, like, why are you listing literally 24 candidates and omitting a candidate that's in the top 8 or top 10 by any measurement is already qualified for the debates? And so there was a lot of both confusion and anger on the part of my supporters. And I frankly didn't know what to tell them because it's not like I had a line into MSNBC to tell them. It's like this was the standard they're using.
But they have now adjusted it, and I think that is an example of how viewers can have an impact, can make a difference. You know, if there's a mistake, sometimes just an innocent mistake, call it out, let them know. Your so-called Yang gang, though, has been criticized. There's been a lot of concern that they're too aggressive, too nasty on social media. Do you have thoughts about that? Are you trying to make sure the temperature remains relatively cool?
You know, I haven't seen that. When I interact with folks online, maybe it's just as me, because, like, you know, maybe they're not like directing like harsh comments towards me, but like it's an extraordinarily wholesome, positive, pro-social energy and vibe. And I sincerely apologize if any journalist or anyone else has encountered anything different online. Certainly that's the last thing I'd want from my campaign and the supporters.
And you're not the only candidate that has this issue about what the social media mob or what trolls do in a candidate's name. Bernie Sanders has had a similar issue. Tell me about the American Journalism Fellows proposal that you've made. You were out with this very early, before anybody was really paying attention to the 2020 race. And you're suggesting government investment for newsrooms.
Yeah, if you look around the country, over 1,200 local newspapers have shut their doors. And studies have shown that if you don't have local journalism, then voting becomes more polarized and extreme. And it makes sense. Like, you don't have any local news, you're just going to vote along your party affiliation. And so if you believe in a vibrant democracy or even a functional democracy, then you have to believe in local journalism. And local papers used to rely upon classified ad revenue to survive, and now all that revenue's disappeared to the internet and Craigslist. So as a society, we have to say, do we believe in democracy? And if so, then we have to find ways to support journalism around the country. So I have a local journalism fund, I have the American Journalism Fellows. We need to help more of these communities transition to sustainable models of journalism if we want people to know what's going on and be able to vote accordingly.
And for the voters who say, I don't want the government paying for news, because that taints the news, what do you say?
Oh, well, in my framework, they'd literally just be giving matching funds to local organizations, so it's not like there's any federal say in terms of what the heck gets published. But you have to look up and say, we've gone through this fortunate period where the market could support journalism, and now we are leaving that period. And so if you want local journalism to survive, which I think is a must, then there are limited sources of funds, and the federal government is, to me, the most sensible one.
As you gain more momentum, so comes more media coverage. That includes more media scrutiny, some more critical coverage. There's been some headlines about that recently. How are you handling that? What's that like for you as someone who hasn't been in the public eye to this degree before?
Well, again, most Americans are still just getting to know me, and I'm excited whenever anyone decides to turn the spotlight on me in the campaign, because then you dig into our vision for a trickle-up economy, for a freedom dividend of $1,000 per American adult per month, for an economy that revolves around making us healthier and stronger and not this phantom GDP measurement. So any press at this point, in my mind, is good press, and I don't offend very easily. So if anyone says something, not like 100% positive about me, I'm like, well, someone digs in. I believe in the discernment of the American people. The Americans are very smart. They can figure out what candidates are about.
Andrew, thanks for being here. Great to see you.
Such a pleasure. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. You too.
Dad. Hey, a 2-year-old.
Dad right here, too. You said, what, 3 and 6?
6 and 3, yeah.
6 and 3. Amazing.
That's commitment.
It is. Thanks for being here. Quick break.